Some of you may know this man, either from his nomination for the Golden Crocoduck, from his comments on videos about evolution, or from his videos. His username is Good Science for You, but his real name is James, or Jim. I've withheld his last name for his privacy and security. I've had a lot of interactions with Jim in the last few weeks. I wouldn't call it a debate, but he subjected me to some pretty extreme verbal abuse on one of my videos, which continued in personal messages. He gave the usual mindless responses, parroting the same old fallacies of creationists about evolution. But then I started to notice a pattern of behavior that reminded me of a particular psychological condition called borderline personality disorder. I'm not a psychologist, but the behavior Jim displays suggests he might not be mentally stable, and I'm making this video to encourage him to get some help and make some changes in his life before he self-destructs. People affected by borderline personality disorder, according to the DSM, behave impulsively, and their relationships, self-image, and emotions are unstable. There's also a very distinctive behavior called idealization and devaluation. Idealization is where the person believes himself or his allies to be idealized versions of themselves. They are the prettiest, or the smartest, or the strongest person on earth. They overestimate their own business acumen, or musical ability, or their IQ, often with disastrous consequences. Jim has often stated that he has an IQ of 180, which is 20 points higher than Albert Einstein was reputed to have, putting him in the super genius category. Such geniuses have astounding abilities in multiple areas, profound insights, and remarkable talents. Jim, on the other hand, is a 62-year-old spa salesman with a failing company. He has difficulty spelling words and constructing grammatically accurate sentences, and his use of language indicates a poor vocabulary. He has a high school diploma and a few college credits from a junior college, yet he claims to have studied science and engineering for 41 years. He says he's read over 20,000 scientific papers on evolution, and to be more knowledgeable on the topic than anyone he's ever met. So Jim sees himself as a genius and a teacher, even though in reality he's a person of low to normal intelligence working in a very normal kind of business, selling spas over the internet. Of course, according to him, he was a high-powered military engineer, and now he designs spa factories in Europe, where his world-renowned band will soon be on tour. The reverse of idealization is devaluation. In this mode, the borderline patient will devalue anyone who opposes or upsets him. This is the aspect of Jim that many of us have experienced most directly. Some of the phrases he used, evotard, delusional assholes, morons, are ad hominem, but the underlying idea is that his opponents are all too stupid, deluded, or religious to concede defeat to his withering logic. He devalues not just their arguments, but their humanity as well. When I asked Jim why he felt that his constant string of insults and profanity were okay in a polite conversation, his response was, "I have every right to cuss you out for the disgusting crap you have turned science into." Actually, he misspelled disgusting, but you get the idea. He's dehumanized his opponents, so he feels no reluctance to insult and abuse people who disagree with him politely. They're less than human to him and undeserving of his respect. Jim has a history of impulsive, self-destructive behavior. As a teenager, he relates to me, he, quote, destroyed a guy who walked up to my motorcycle and smashed the windshield. He was a drunk, abusive biker who had no idea who I was or my education on martial arts. He thought he was tough, end quote. Note Jim's idealization of his martial arts prowess. I've also spoken with his estranged brother, John, who tells me that Jim has also been to court over spousal abuse. But I should emphasize that the brothers have been fighting for years over money that John claims Jim defrauded the rest of the family of, including his mother. John may not be an accurate or impartial reporter of events, although John is able to back up most of his claims with actual court documents. For example, Jim has had judgments levied against him by half a dozen collection agencies in the last few years. John related this, and it was easy to verify online. I was also able to confirm that John won a judgment against his brother for defrauding his family for the investment money to start the spa business. This is all part of the pattern of Jim's self-destructive borderline behavior. Jim's been married multiple times. He reported that one wife was physically abusive to him. John tells a different story and says that the marriages have mostly been broken up over physical and mental abuse by Jim. Another self-destructive behavior is Jim's presence on the internet and his business practices. He makes a living by selling spas online, but he's made so many enemies by attacking customers with complaints that they have mobbed review sites with complaints about him. He fires back at them on his main website, accusing disgruntled customers of being liars and cheats. There are entire websites, easy to find, devoted to negative stories about doing business with Jim. He also cruises the forums for spa professionals and fires off characteristic rants about other manufacturers, using more of his devaluation behavior. When confronted on this issue, Jim blamed the spa industry, who are jealous of his exceptional knowledge and intelligence. This leads me to Jim's paranoia and insecurity, another characteristic of borderline personality disorder. He reacted very angrily when I asked him to support his claims of superior intelligence or a thorough knowledge of evolution. Needless to say, he has a child's understanding of general and specific topics on biology, but he tried to bold-faced lie his way out of his ignorance. I tested him with a question about a subject that I can honestly say I'm an expert on, and his answer was not just gibberish, but completely inane. He tried to use terminology with no meaning. I think he really believed that he could come up with a random string of words and make them sound meaningful to a real scientist. He's well known for his theory that chimpanzees are the result of sexual congress between humans and other apes, as well as a string of other equally ridiculous ideas. Jim is a devotee of Siddha Yoga, according to John, a follower of Swami Muktananda. Apparently this is such an important part of his life that he changed his last name to the name of a Hindu hero. He has also called himself on some spa forums a good Christian, and yet he claims not to have any religious commitment. He is never so verbally violent, though, as when his ignorance or mistakes are pointed out to him. He's established for himself the role of teacher. Anyone who fails to play along as student is the enemy. It ruins his mental idealization of himself that he might be wrong about anything, so he responds very aggressively. One last factor that I think is important. According to what information I have, at least 3 of Jim's immediate family were diagnosed with a mental illness, bipolar affective disorder. His brother, his son, and his mother. When we add up the bizarre and aggressive behavior, the history of broken marriages and failed businesses, the criminal history that I haven't gone into here, and the family history of mental illness, a strong case could be made that Jim is at least very high risk for mental illness. I have no real interest in what Jim has to say. I also have no interest in arguing with him or debating him anymore. His behavior shows that he's an unstable individual, and one that should seek help. His legal threats and verbal abuse are unwelcome and uninteresting. He says he has a happy marriage, enjoys his music and his businesses. Good. Go spend more time with your family, your music, and your businesses. I wish you well, Jim, but get help. Thanks for watching.